Part 23. Man at the Top of the Food Chain. Author, Xionglang Guo. Chapter 221. Seeing Fang Youhuang's indifferent look, Fang Yang didn't know what to say. In this silence, Fang Youhuang spoke, "Who gave you the nuclear bomb?" "Baiyu does not have such a thing." "Haha, Grandpa Huang, I bought it from an arms dealer on the black market," Fang Yang said with a smile. "I basically used up all the savings of my eldest brother and me." But Fang Youhuang just looked at him expressionlessly, with a strange look in his eyes, but he still continued, "Do you think I will believe it?" Naturally, Fang Youhuang would not believe it, because Fang Youhuang himself had been an emperor. No individual in the world has ever built a nuclear bomb. And none of the countries that possess nuclear bombs have ever had nuclear bombs flow out. What's more, what was detonated in the desert this time was not one, but 2 nuclear bombs, but 10 nuclear bombs. That is a force that can directly destroy some small countries. Hearing Fang Youhuang's question, Fang Yongqiang smiled and said, "Grandpa Huang." Fang Youhuang said indifferently, "Is it the Star Alliance?" Fang Youhuang's words were like a sharp sword, piercing into Fang Yang's heart. He looked at Fang Youhuang steadily and did not deny it, because he knew that denying it would be useless. He just said something irrelevant. "Grandpa Huang, do you want to help me or Baiyu when you come to see me this time?" Helping Fang Yang is naturally to help the other party ascend to Dabao. With Fang Youhuang's power, prestige and countless connections hidden among Baiyu's top brass. After helping Fang Yang ascend to the throne, he is absolutely as stable as a rock. But if Emperor Fang Yu only helps Baiyu, then the person sitting on the throne may not necessarily be Fang Yang in front of him. Fang Youhuang sighed, seeming to be lamenting the scene in front of him. He only said one sentence and answered all Fang Yang's questions. "Li Enping is not dead." Really, a trace of disappointment flashed in Fang Yang's eyes, but he finally calmed down and said, "There are more than 10 nuclear bombs." "Grandpa Huang, what is your current position?" Fang Youhuang naturally understood what Fang Yang meant, and also knew that his grandson had underestimated Li Enping. If he hadn't focused so much on hatred, he might not have reached the scene in front of him. Facing Fang Yang's question, Fang Youhuang sighed again. Perhaps today was the day he sighed the most in his life. "I lost. Totally defeated. So I became Li Enping's subordinate." Fang Yang laughed loudly, as if he had heard the funniest thing in the world. He tore off every bit of respect on his face and looked at Fang Youhuang coldly, as if he was not a powerful 5th-level ability user in front of him, but an old man who is very old. "So are you here to kill me now?" "I said it. There are more than 10 nuclear bombs." Hearing Fang Yang's words, Fang Youhuang's face seemed to darken a bit. "So I was the one who came first, and I didn't come until now." What Fang Youhuang said was very vague, but Fang Yang understood it. He showed a trace of disbelief and doubt. Then, under Fang Youhuang's gaze, he picked up the phone and started making calls. Fang Youhuang just looked at him like this, seemingly not paying attention at all. When no one answers the first call, Fang Yang frowned, and when no one answered the 4th call, cold sweat had soaked his back. He leaned back on the chair with a slumped expression. At this moment, it seemed that all the strength in his body had been lost. When did it happen? After the nuclear explosion, I came to kick in. What Fang Youhuang did not say was that under the command of the incarnation of Nian Qi, he did not rush into the nuclear explosion to help Li Enping. Because Li Enping doesn't need help. Instead, he came to Kikan and began to investigate the source of the nuclear bomb, manpower, various related personnel, and the location of the remaining nuclear bombs. With the skills of a 5th-level ability user and his status as the Supreme Emperor, Fang Youhuang got the news easily. In order not to alert others, he never helped the fleeing Dragon Bird guards or the Daxia envoy. Until Li Enping also came to Kikan. With astonishing speed, the two of them traveled more than half a century separately in more than 2 hours, and finally controlled all the remaining 3 nuclear bombs. He just came to the palace and came to Fang Yang in front of him. I guessed that you might have a spare on hand, but I didn't expect that you would put one even underground in the palace. Looking at Fang Yuhuang's fierce eyes, Fang Yang seemed to be fearless. He smiled and said, "If someone wants to kill me, they will naturally come to the palace to kill me. Once my heartbeat stops, the nuclear bomb under our feet will explode. But I didn't expect that the one who came to kill me would be you. It's better than dying in his hands." The person Fang Yuhuang mentioned was naturally Li Enping. If the grandson in front of him was handed over to Li Enping, he didn't know what kind of torture he would suffer before he died. A trace of disdain flashed in Fang Yang's eyes. Even though the old man in front of him possessed the most powerful power in the world, when he gave up to Li Enping, in his eyes, he was just an old dog who betrayed his country and sought glory. Even if this old man the dog was once a person he respected and admired immensely. However, he did not try to anger the other party at this time, but said calmly, "If I die, most of the people in Kikan will be buried with me. I don't ask for anything else. Let me leave here, I will go to the Western continent and never come back." Just as Fang Yang was trying to negotiate terms with Fang Yuhuang, Li Enping kicked open the door and walked in. Outside the gate, all the guards fell to the ground unconsciously. They didn't even know how they died until the moment before they died. When Fang Yang saw Li Enping rushing in, he was slightly startled, but it was not until he actually saw the warhead in the other party's hand that his face really changed. "Are you crazy? This warhead is equipped with a horizontal detection device. As long as it is slightly not level with the ground, it will explode." Li Enping's face remained unchanged, and he said coldly, "Don't worry, my hands are very steady." Li Enping was right, his hands were indeed very steady, perhaps the most stable hands in the world. Even if an armor-piercing bullet hit his hands, these hands would not move at all. So he came from underground to the ground, while killing everyone he saw in the palace, and came to the side of Fang Yuhuang, and the hand holding the warhead did not change at all. Seeing that the warhead in Li Enping's hand did not explode, Fang Yang's mind had just calmed down, but the next second, Li Enping's action made his heart tighten again. Because the other party stretched out his hand and threw the warhead directly to Fang Yuhuang on the side. "No," Fang Yang roared, his eyes red, staring at the warhead in the air. He never thought that the other party would do this. How dare he? Does he want to kill everyone in Kikan? Am I going to die like this? However, time did not leave Fang Yang too much time to think. A little fire lit up from the warhead, but the explosion in front of him was like a miniature firework, lighting up a small fireball in the air. The fireball was not only small, but also very dark. The power of the nuclear bomb could not be seen at all, as if there was an invisible force wrapped around it, making it unable to cross the thunder pool. There was only one reason for all this, and it was naturally Fang Yuhuang who was standing aside. He used the power of the 33 caves to stretch the space around the warhead by 33,000 kilometers. The shock wave was also very good, whether it was flames, heat, or light, 33,000 kilometers became a natural mode, making it completely unable to threaten the 3 people in front of him, let alone the people in Kikan. Fang Yang did not say another word until the fireball completely dissipated. He just stared at the place where the warhead just disappeared, speechless. Li Enping glanced at him and said indifferently, "I have found out that it was the Star Alliance who contacted you. Tell me their contact person. I can kill fewer people." Fang Yang said dejectedly, "Just kill me. It's all my own decision. It has nothing to do with them." Li Enping said coldly, "So everyone who is directly related to this attack must die." Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xiang Go. Chapter 222. Although Li Enping looks intact now, without any injuries on his body, he doesn't look like a person who has experienced a nuclear explosion. But that's because he consumed a lot of soul power to heal his body. In order to fight against various high temperatures, light, radiation, and shock wave damage, Li Anping consumed hundreds of thousands of soul powers this time, equivalent to the loss of hundreds of thousands of clones. And if it weren't for the powerful regeneration ability this time, I'm afraid even Li Anping would not be able to escape from serious injuries or even dying. How could he not be angry? Li Anping in the Imperial study glanced at Fang Yahuang and said coldly, "He is your grandson, ask where the people of the Star Alliance are in Baiyu, and then kill him." After that, he never looked at Fang Yang and Fang Yahuang again. Because he knew that Fang Yahuang would definitely do what he said. Just because Fang Yahuang is a person who is afraid of death. In order to pursue the highest realm of power, he can pay any price. So before reaching the peak, he is absolutely unwilling to die. What's more, there is also the incarnation of mind energy in his body, monitoring and controlling Fang Yahuang at any time. So Li Anping walked out of the Imperial study with confidence, and then he heard the sounds of the entire palace. Some were still celebrating excitedly, some were worried about Baiyu's future, some were sleeping, some were sleepy, and some were eating supper. Some members of the Imperial Guards discovered the bodies that Li Anping left along the way. The entire palace, as if transformed into a clear three-dimensional model, appeared in Li Anping's mind. The most noticeable thing was that a large group of Imperial Guards were running quickly towards the Imperial study along the bodies he left along the way. At the same time, a large number of troops outside the Imperial city closed all 4 city gates and provided support to various checkpoints, as if they were going to surround the entire Imperial city. Listening to the various information coming from his ears, Li Anping showed a sneer at the corner of his mouth. He gently raised his right hand, and then snapped his fingers. The crisp snap of fingers was like opening the movement of death. Along the quiet night sky, it spread to the entire Imperial city. At this moment, the 600-meter area around Li Anping instantly became a silent hell. All the souls of mortals were completely devoured at this moment, leaving nothing behind. They turned into Li Anping's powerful nutrients and flowed into his sea of consciousness. And those who lost their souls naturally left only an empty shell. A large number of guards fell to the ground. Only a few people with special abilities were left standing there, looking at the scene in front of them with fear. What's going on? We are under attack. Everyone, retreat quickly. Unfortunately, their experience, ability, powerful physical skills, or tacit cooperation were all meaningless at this time. The black figure was like a dark lightning. It passed between them. When they reacted, fatal blood flowers had already bloomed on these people with special abilities. Some of them had their necks broken, some had a hole in their chests, and some were directly smashed into the wall and turned into a pool of meat paste. They could not see the power wandering around in the palace, and they could not defend against Li Anping's casual attacks. So when all the ordinary people were killed in the first second, the ability users began to be ruthlessly slaughtered by Li Anping. 3 of the guards fled towards the north gate. Suddenly, the last person ran and screamed. The 2 people in front turned around and saw Li Anping grabbing the screamer's head. In the other's desperate struggle, he crushed the other's skull and the scream stopped abruptly. The exploded head was like a blooming flower, leaving a deep red blood mark on the ground. Seeing this scene, the remaining 2 people were even more scared and fled towards the north gate screaming wildly. The sound of footsteps sounded behind them. Like the bell of death, it announced the end of their lives. There was another scream, and the leading guard looked back, and there was no one behind him. He was the only one left on the empty street. "Let me go. Please let me go." He fell to his knees and screamed like a nervous person. But the next moment, he suddenly stuck out his tongue. It seemed that something was dripping on his face. When his tongue licked the liquid on his face changed immediately. It's blood. A bloody rain suddenly appeared above his head, and countless corpses fell from the sky and fell on him. Beside him, that was the body of the missing guard. He was caught in the sky by Li Enping, torn into countless pieces, and then scattered. Looking at the blood and flesh all over his body, the last guard screamed wildly and rushed towards the north gate. This time he was not attacked again along the way, maybe Li Enping let him go temporarily. Listening to the screams coming from the palace in the distance, he ran faster and faster, wishing he could grow 4 legs. He turned another intersection, and suddenly his eyes lit up, and the north gate of the palace appeared in front of him. Countless spotlights were still shining on the city gates. It looked like there were many people outside the palace, and it seemed that many people were already standing there. But the strange thing was that with so many people, there was no noise at all. But at this time, he couldn't care less. He smiled excitedly and ran towards the north gate. But when he approached the city gate, he suddenly found countless soldiers standing outside the imperial city. They looked at him with strange eyes. They kept shouting something, but he could not hear anything. Then, he found the strangeness of the city gate. Not only could he not hear the sound outside the imperial city, he found that no matter how he ran, the city gate seemed to be close at hand, but he could not get closer. There seemed to be an invisible barrier between him and the city gate, so that he could not reach the other side of the city gate no matter how he ran. What's going on? What on earth is going on? Unfortunately, he will never know the answer, just like the city gate in front of him, which looks close at hand, but he can hardly cross it even if he spends his whole life. With a light sound of puff, a white shockwave shot through the chest of the guard. He looked at the penetrating wound on his chest, and his eyes gradually lost focus. On the other side of the city gate, when the soldiers saw Li Enping appear behind the guard and kill him, they immediately became excited. Countless guns fired at Li Enping inside the city gate, but once the bullets approached the city gate, they immediately slowed down, then almost stopped in mid-air for a while, and finally fell to the ground powerlessly. No matter how many bullets or guns, the result was the same. Several people wanted to rush over, but no matter how fast or how long they ran, they could not reach the palace. They could only watch Li Enping cruelly kill the escaped guards one by one, but they were powerless. The same scenes also happened at the South Gate, West Gate, East Gate, and on the edge of the entire imperial city. When Fang Yahuang used the 33 caves to wrap up the entire imperial city, no one could leave this deadly place. No one could come in. They could only wait quietly, waiting for Li Enping to kill them one by one. Crying, begging for mercy, resisting, hiding, all made no sense at all. It took about 20 minutes for Li Enping to completely bloodbath the entire palace. All the people, including the imperial guards, some royal family members, and ministers, were killed. The only exceptions were Fang Yong, Fang Yahuang, Yellow Mengxiang, and Fang Yuelin. Fang Yahuang didn't need to be mentioned. Fang Yong still had some questions to ask, so he didn't kill him. As for Yellow Mengxiang and Fang Yuelin, as the surrenderists of Baiyu, Li Enping naturally thought they were useful. Moreover, with Fang Yong's instigation, the surrenderists had long been despised by most of the people of Baiyu. If they continued to take over the affairs of Baiyu, it would be very beneficial for Li Enping. And now Li Enping felt that Fang Yahuang's ability was very useful, and he could use his ability frequently in the future. So he planned to let Fang Yahuang become the ruler of Baiyu in name in the future, but the specific matters would still be managed by Yellow Mengxiang. In this way, he could use Fang Yahuang to his heart's content and let him do many things for him. Moreover, when he came to Yellow Mengxiang, she told him a piece of information that he was very interested in. Information about the inner treasury of the Baiyu royal family. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, SpecialAbilities. Chapter 223. Outside the palace, a helicopter was hovering at high altitude, and inside the aircraft were reporters from the TV station. Everyone, the palace was attacked by people with unknown abilities an hour ago. Now the army has surrounded the entire palace, but they still haven't found a way to enter the palace. As the camera moves, the palace under the helicopter is revealed. I saw that the entire palace was covered in blood from top to bottom. There were bodies and debris everywhere. At the edge of the palace, various soldiers and martial arts people kept trying to rush into the palace, but because of the existence of the 33 cave heavens, they could never really get close to the palace. Even once they got close to the city wall, they could not even get within a centimeter. Can't move forward. In mid-air, several parachutists fell from high altitude, trying to land towards the palace. But when they landed 50 meters above the palace, they stopped. No, it didn't stop completely. Just looking at their bodies, they still kept falling. It seemed that no matter how they landed, they always maintained a distance of 50 meters from the ground. If 33 Dongtian is not revoked, these paratroopers may remain suspended in mid-air forever until they have fallen a full 33,000 kilometers. Obviously by that time, they were absolutely dead. Outside the palace, a general pointed at the helicopter in the sky and said angrily, "What is that? Who put them up?" "General, he's from the TV station." "Don't let them evacuate yet," the general roared. "We must not let the whole thing be reported, let alone let people know that Li Anping is not dead." Compared with the panic outside the imperial city, the interior of the imperial city has become a dead zone. Under the moonlight, it looked extremely quiet and empty. Because now there are only 5 people left alive in the entire huge imperial city. Li Anping was taking Yellow Mengxiang and Fang Yuelin towards the inner treasury of the palace. And in his ears, the conversation between Fang Yuhuang and Fang Yong could be heard all the time. "Sir, this way." Yellow Mengxiang pointed to an inconspicuous small room. "Oh? The inner treasury is here." Li Anping looked at it and naturally swept away his thoughts. "Sure enough, I found that there was another mystery inside." After Yellow Mengxiang opened the room, he opened a cabinet and twisted a few inconspicuous buttons. The cabinet changed and revealed a secret door. Behind the secret door was an elevator. After Yellow Mengxiang had her fingerprints and iris scanned, the elevator door opened. Then Li Anping and 3 others walked in one after another. Li Anping stood in the elevator and felt that the entire elevator was descending toward the ground at an alarming speed. Yellow Mengxiang introduced, this was built by Fang Ziki, the founder of the Baiyu Kingdom, after the founding of the country. Later, it was handled by generations of Baiyu Kingdom lords. Naturally, it was constantly transformed. After all, this is the inner treasury of the royal family. Countless treasures and secret books are stored here. As she spoke, Yellow Mengxiang's heartbeat couldn't help but speed up. She looked at the monster-like man in front of her, fearing that he would twist her head off at some point. As if sensing Yellow Mengxiang's nervousness, Li Anping said calmly, "You two are very aware of current affairs. I will not kill you. As long as you are obedient, you will still be the queen and princess of Baiyu." Fang Yuelin on the side was silent for a moment after hearing these words, and finally couldn't help but said, "What are you going to do with Lao Qi and his men?" "Yulin," Yellow Mengxiang on the side dissuaded, and at the same time glanced at Li Anping worriedly, for fear of offending him. However, Li Anping knew that this woman had no intention of dissuading him. She was just cooperating with Fang Yuelin to test his handling of Fang Yong and his team. It doesn't matter, so he signaled that Yellow Mengxiang was okay, and then said, "Fang Yong must die. As for those who took refuge in him, those who were directly related to the nuclear explosion must die. The rest of the people will not be investigated for now. Take your time in the future." Yellow Mengxiang breathed a sigh of relief. What she was most worried about was that Li Anping would massacre the people of Baiyu indiscriminately. That would be the worst case scenario. Both emotionally and rationally, she was unwilling to face this situation. But Fang Yuelin on the side still seemed dissatisfied, and dissuaded him. The leader is only Lao Qi, and all his subordinates are innocent. And it is too difficult to define a direct relationship. Once the carrot is pulled out and the mud is brought out, I'm afraid thousands of people are involved. Li Anping glanced at Fang Yuelin calmly, and his cold eyes blocked the other person's next words. Then Fang Yuelin felt a chill in his left ear, and Yellow Meng Meng beside him had already let out a scream. Fang Yuelin's left ear was completely chopped off by Li Anping. She looked at the ear that fell at her feet, immediately reached out to cover the wound, and couldn't help but let out a scream. Blood continued to flow from the wound on the ear. Yellow Menxiang, who was on the side, quickly stepped forward, hugged Fang Yuelin's body, tore off his clothes and wrapped the other person's wound. But after all, Fang Yuelin has been wallowing in the world all year round. With his strong body, 4th level abilities, and the power of Kylin blood, although he seems to have retained a lot of blood, his injuries are not serious. At this moment, Li Anping's cold voice came to her ears. Woman, figure out your identity. You are alive now, not because you have the qualifications, but only because of my kindness. If you negotiate terms with me next time, I will break your neck with my own hands. Do you understand? Fang Yuelin clenched his fist tightly, his face turned from white to blue, and the pain from the wound seemed to be nothing compared to the chill brought to him by Li Anping's words. She whispered, I understand. Li Anping snorted coldly and ignored him. Yelv Mengxiang on the side did not dare to speak either. He knew that Li Anping's words were not only for Fang Yuelin, but also for herself. 10 seconds later, the elevator slowly stopped. At this time, the 3 people in the group had already descended more than 300 meters from the ground. Baiyu should not have such technical means, and more than 300 meters were dug when the country was founded. It seems that it was made by ability. With this thought, Li Anping walked out of the elevator first. Next, Yellow Mengxiang walked in front along the way. The first thing was a sound detection door. When Yellow Mengxiang shouted her name 3 times, the door slowly opened. On the square of hundreds of meters, countless gold bars, cash, and various precious antiques and calligraphy and paintings appeared in front of the 3 people. Yellow Mengxiang introduced, this is the wealth accumulated by the royal family for hundreds of years since the founding of Baiyu. The total value is difficult to estimate. I conservatively guess that it is probably around 100 billion. However, since His Majesty registered, the treasury has been tight, and more than 20 billion has been withdrawn from the inner treasury. The His Majesty in Yellow Menxiang's mouth is naturally her husband, King Kylin. Fang Yuelin, who was standing aside, covered her wound and stared at the amazing wealth in front of her. She never thought that the royal family had hidden so much wealth in the inner treasury. She thought to herself, it would be great if all this money could be used to build Baiyu. But she subconsciously glanced at Li Anping again, and her face darkened. Forget it, even if all this money is used to build the army and ability users, what's the use of facing this bastard? Li Anping didn't take the wealth in front of him seriously. He didn't plan to transport so much money back to Baiyu, but directly gave it to Yellow Mengxiang and others to use and invest in the construction of Baiyu. In his eyes, both Daxia and Baiyu were countries that needed his liberation. So the 3 of them moved forward, crossed hundreds of meters, and headed for the next level of the inner treasury. Just behind the first level of the inner treasury, there was a huge door similar to the door of a bank safe. Yellow Mengxiang entered 12 passwords in succession and performed facial recognition before the door slowly opened. The second level of the inner treasury of the Bai royal family appeared in front of the 3 people. Compared with the luxury and dazzling first level of the inner treasury, the second level of the inner treasury seemed much colder. The entire second level of the inner treasury could be seen at a glance. In addition to the 12 huge cylinders, there was a large iron door leading to the third level of the inner treasury. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, SpecialAbilities. Chapter 224. In the 12 cylinders in front of him, the corpses of the previous emperors of the Biokingdom were stored. Without exception, they are all level 4 ability users. Li Anping looked at them one by one carefully. The closer the corpses were to modern times, the better they were preserved, especially the last 3, which looked lifelike, as if they were still alive but just sleeping. Obviously, with the development of the times, the technology of preserving corpses has become more and more complete. Each of these 12 emperors is one of the most powerful top ability users in the contemporary era, and has awakened various bloodline abilities. But he still couldn't escape the passage of time. After his death, he could only leave a body for the descendants of the Fang family to admire. However, when Li Anping looked at the 12 cylinders, his eyes suddenly froze. It turned out that there were only 11 corpses of kings in the 12 containers, and one of them contained a strange thing. It was a piece of meat that looked like the tail of some kind of creature, floating in a solution. The piece of meat is about 1 meter long and about 20 centimeters in diameter. Its surface is covered with a layer of fine black scales. What is this? Yellow Mengxiang, who was standing by, saw him walking up to Li Anping and explained, "This thing already existed at the beginning of the founding of the Biokingdom. I wonder if you have heard some rumors that the first emperor of our Biokingdom, Fang Ziki, was only by obtaining the treasure left by Bai Zing, the founding emperor of the great Shang dynasty 2000 years ago, can we create hundreds of years of history in the troubled times?" Oh? Is this true? This thing is the treasure left by Bai Zing. Li Anping looked at the pieces of meat in the container with interest, but suddenly, there was a strange feeling of hunger in his heart. The child became hungry. The piece of meat in front of him turned into a delicious meal at this moment, and every cell in his body seemed to be shouting and cheering. "Eat it! Eat it! Eat it! Eat it!" Li Anping felt as if every cell in his body was craving for the flesh and blood in front of him. There was even a lot of saliva secreted from his throat. He couldn't help but make a gurgling sound and swallowed. Yellow Mengxiang, who was on the side, obviously did not notice Li Anping's abnormality, and continued, "According to internal records of the royal family, Emperor Tasia did discover a Shang dynasty relic, but it was not a treasure left by Bai Zeng. It was a treasure. This piece of flesh and blood was found on the battlefield left by ancient ability users. In addition, there were also some secret martial arts books. But what is the use of this piece of flesh and blood? There are no records among the royal family. We also sent people to study it, but we didn't come to any conclusion. It looks like the tail of some kind of creature, but it's actually just a rock. If it weren't for the rules set by Emperor Tasia that it must be well preserved, I'm afraid this thing would have been cleared out of the inner treasury long ago." Li Anping nodded, holding back the waves of hunger in his heart. He said calmly, "I want this thing." When Li Anping asked for this thing, Yellow Mengxiang, who was present, naturally had no objection. What's more, this thing is just a piece of rubbish stone in her opinion, and she doesn't know what it is used for. Even if Emperor Tasia ordered them to be preserved well, let alone Emperor Tasia, who has been dead for so many years, even if he comes back from the dead, he probably has to listen to Li Anping. Next, a group of 3 people walked towards the third level of the inner treasury, and the second level of the inner treasury contained the corpses of the previous Baiyu emperors. It was important to the Baiyu royal family, but to Li Anping, it was nothing. Except for the stone that aroused his hunger, he had no interest in anything else. Arriving at the gate of the inner treasury on the 3rd floor, Yellow Mengxiang sighed and said, "Only the emperors of the past 100 months can enter the inner treasury on the 3rd floor. I no longer have this authority. I am afraid that in this world, only Grandpa Huan can enter, able to get in." Li Anping said nothing. Instead, he walked forward and touched the huge iron door in front of him. The iron door is round and looks to be made of some unknown alloy, a bit like the vault door of a bank safe. But bigger and thicker than that. In fact, not only the door is very strong, but the entire third floor of the inner warehouse is wrapped in 9 layers of special alloy with a total thickness of 18 meters. In other words, the entire third floor of the inner warehouse is just a metal cabinet. If you want to go in first, there is only one way to go: open the door. Are the secret martial arts books inside? Li Anping asked while touching the door. Yellow Mengxiang nodded. The third level of the inner treasury is the last level. It contains all the precious secret martial arts collected in Bio since the founding of the country. This is what His Majesty told me personally before his death. Any prince, if you want to practice the secret martial arts, you must apply to His Majesty 3 months in advance. However, due to the emergence of 5th level ability users, and because the secret martial arts in the inner library are too advanced, the qualification requirements for practitioners are also very high, so fewer and fewer people apply. In the past 10 years, almost no one has applied anymore. And even if you want to practice ancient abilities, there are many sects in Bio Kingdom that have the inheritance of esoteric martial arts. The esoteric martial arts in these sects not only have low requirements, but also have masters to guide them. Even if most members of the royal family want to practice, they don't know how. Consider the tomes stored in the inner vault. The third level of the inner library has not been opened for a long time. The Majesty in Yellow Mengxiang's mouth obviously refers to King Kailan. Li Anping nodded upon hearing this. So far, no 5th level ability users have been cultivated in the ancient system. In addition, the qualifications are high, and the cultivation takes a lot of time and energy, so it has always been looked down upon by the ability users of the other 5 major systems. In addition, the secret books are controlled by the top government officials and will not be open to ordinary people for cultivation. Even if they are open to ordinary people for cultivation, not many people can practice because of their qualifications. These reasons have made the overall strength of ancient ability users much weaker than that of the other 5 major ability users. However, Li Anping still attaches great importance to these classics. The fact that Bio Country does not have the courage to open these classics does not mean that he does not have them. Other organizations think that this kind of classics is difficult to scale up and mass produce because of the requirements for the qualifications of the practitioners, and it is better to study modern weapons. But Li Anping still wants to give it a try. He thinks there is always a way to solve these technical problems. For example, his own immortal body is the best experimental material. There are also countless clones in the 8th Research Institute, which are also good materials for practicing these secret martial arts. Thinking of this, Li Anping smiled. You guys step back a few steps. Yellow Mengxiang and Fang Yuelin obviously guessed what the other party was going to do. They didn't have the courage to dissuade them, so they could only quickly retreat to the back to avoid being accidentally injured by Li Anping. Li Anping saw that they had retreated far enough, so he raised his right fist. The black energy began to gather towards his palm. Like black, sticky ink, it wrapped his entire fist. The door in front of him was very thick, but Li Anping felt that he could break it. The only problem was that he had to control his strength and not damage the classics in the inner library. Carefully controlling his strength, Li Anping's right fist gently extended and hit the door of the inner library. Although it seemed that Li Anping only punched lightly, the result was terrible. The entire gate made a loud bang, and then it was deformed and dented. A hoarse and disgusting metal friction sound came from the gate, which made Yellow Mengxiang and Fang Yuelin, who were standing a few hundred meters away, feel upset. When the loud noise stopped, the entire metal gate had been completely deformed and dented inward for almost 2 meters, but there was still no gap leading to the inside. This surprised Li Anping. Did you use too little strength? Thinking of this, Li Anping raised his fist again carefully, and his fist with black dots hit the dented metal door like a heavy hammer. There was another bang, This time it was shorter and sharper than the previous one. When Li Anping retracted his right fist, the entire metal door had slowly completely separated from the door frame and retreated inward. Even the door frame could not withstand the tearing of Li Anping's huge force and cracked. The passage leading to the third floor of the inner storehouse was open in front of Li Anping. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xianglang Ge. Chapter 225. The inner storehouse on the third floor is much smaller than the inner storehouse on the second floor. It's only about 50 square meters. There was only one bookshelf in the empty room. There are more than a dozen books scattered on the bookshelf. Each book is carefully selected by the Bai royal family, and it is also the best among many ancient abilities, or secret martial arts. Even several of them were written because the Emperor Baiyu at the time was worried that if they were passed down, they would threaten the status of the domestic royal family. That's why it was confiscated into the inner treasury to prevent others from practicing it. And because Baiyu Kingdom has always lagged behind many major countries in technology, it is worried that its high-tech storage methods will be stolen. Therefore, these classics have been stored in this oldest way. Li Anping picked up a book and it seemed that the content inside described a secret martial art called De Sun Qianqi. At first it was just for physical fitness, but once the qualifications of the practitioner met the requirements, he could cultivate a flame called the immortal light fire. Not only is it incredibly lethal, it also has healing properties. Therefore, the very beginning of the book introduces how to test this qualification. Li Anping put down the classics and picked up a few more in succession to read. They are Uncertain True Kung Fu, Northern Suanwu Secret Finger, Selfless Great Spiritual Consciousness, etc. There are a total of 16 books, each of which records a superb martial art that can cultivate various weird, mysterious and powerful abilities. Even after Li Anping saw it, he couldn't help but want to give it a try. This is probably something that anyone who pursues great power cannot help. However, these 16 classics have one thing in common, and that is their beginnings, which first introduce what qualifications and requirements are needed to practice this martial art. Although Li Anping was very interested in these 16 secret martial arts, upon closer inspection, he found that he could only meet the qualification requirements for 3 of them. This would have to be determined by him finding time to test it according to the method given in the classics. With Li Anping's strong physical fitness, only 3 secret martial arts might meet the requirements. The qualification requirements for practitioners of these top secret martial arts can be imagined. Most of their requirements have nothing to do with physical and mental strength. What pays more attention is the talent of the cultivator. Li Anping looked at it and found that the only secret martial arts he could practice were 3. They are called Tian Xiang Yin Sha, Fi Feng Flame Extinguishing / and Immortal Thunder Aperture respectively. They are all martial arts that have extremely strict requirements on physical fitness. Of course, the ancient abilities they have cultivated can also be ranked in the top 5 among these 16 classics in Li Anping's opinion. However, Li Anping did not give up on the other 13 classics. He was already immortal and did not have to worry about any problems in his cultivation. He planned to experiment with all 16 classics. By the way, I also asked the 8th Research Institute to follow up and study to see if there is a way to make these ancient ability cultivations more popular, or to reach the 5th level. When Li Anping put down the last classic in his hand, he suddenly found a scroll at the bottom of the bookshelf. The entire scroll is wrapped in a black cloth bag, if you don't look closely. It's easy to ignore it. Yellow Mengxiang, who was on the side, saw Li Anping pick up the scroll and explained, "I heard from your majesty that one of the collected classics is a scroll, which was also obtained by Emperor Taizhu and the strange stone. I heard that Taizhu until his death, the emperor never forgot the contents of the scroll, saying that it contained one of the most powerful secret martial arts. However, the Baiyu emperors of all dynasties have studied the contents of the scroll. But no one has found out why." Fang Yuelin on the side was disapproving after hearing Yellow Menxiang's introduction. Hundreds of years have passed since the founding of the People's Republic of China. How could the esoteric martial arts at that time compare to these few hundred meters, especially with the rapid development after social modernization? The other 16 secret martial arts were practiced and improved by some people 50 years ago. And the so-called most powerful secret martial arts hidden in this scroll was really strong at the time. But now the theory is at least hundreds of years behind. Even if it is presented, it is probably just a second or third-rate esoteric martial arts. Not only Fang Yuelin thought so, but Li Anping on the side obviously thought so too. After all, times are developing, and not everything is more powerful the older it is. But when Li Anping stretched out his hand to unfold the scroll and displayed the entire scroll in front of his eyes immediately showed shock. This is a picture of hell. Huh? Yellow Mengxiang gave Li Anping a strange look. Asked, "Sir, what did you say?" Seeing that Li Anping was still silent, she thought for a while and explained, "There is a line of words on this picture, but we have invited many historical experts to study it, but none of them recognized what dynasty the words were. We don't know what they mean." Li Anping didn't answer, nor did he explain to Yellow Mengxiang that he could read the words. There was no reason and no memory. When Li Anping saw the strange font, he found that he could understand the meaning of the line. Hell Map Volume 1, this is what that line means. But this is not what really shocked Li Anping. What really surprised him was the content of this so-called picture of hell. The vast white land was full of all kinds of monsters that only existed in fantasy. Two-headed giants, lions with scorpion tails and bat wings, tigers as big as hills, and giant spiders with the upper body of women, all kinds of monsters, they all appeared vividly on the hell map. They fought and devoured each other, showing bloody scenes. All of this was exactly the same as what Li Anping saw in his dream and in Hei's memory. It made him feel familiar. As this familiar feeling rose in his heart, countless information was transmitted from this hell map into his mind. The hell map recorded a special secret martial arts, or a systematic practice method, which was divided into 7 layers. In addition to the first layer of enlightenment, the last 6 layers were the respiratory system, digestive system, endocrine system, circulatory system, nervous system, and motor system of the regenerated organisms. The next moment, Li Anping felt that the mind energy in his body began to emerge uncontrollably. At the same time, the souls in the sea of consciousness gushed out and turned into the best fuel, and the black mind energy became a blazing flame, burning those gushing souls. And Li Anping's body became the best furnace to burn these fuels and flames. Li Anping looked at the black mind energy that was rising all over his body. He murmured, "Is that so?" Although Li Anping's physical fitness did not improve at all. However, at this moment, the first layer of the hell map, the blood body, with the soul as nutrients, the mind energy as flames, and the body as a furnace, is the first step for creatures to move towards transcendence. It's done. But more questions rang in Li Anping's mind. Shang Dynasty, Bai Xing, countless secrets, Baiyu, Fangziki, and demons, the white earth and the hell map in front of him. What is the relationship between all this? When Baiyu experienced a series of shocking changes in succession, until the entire palace was surrounded, causing panic in the entire Kikan. In a mysterious meeting room in the distant western continent, 5 men and women of different appearances were sitting around a round table. One of them was thin and wrapped in a black cloak. He said in a hoarse voice, "Queen of Heaven, what exactly did you call us here for?" Beside him, there was a man who was even stranger than him. The man was tall and strong, but he was wearing white armor that was obviously not like that of modern people. Even his entire head was covered in a helmet. He said indifferently, "I have 30 minutes to pray today. If you have anything to say, please tell me quickly." On the other side of the table, the blonde and blue-eyed Queen of Heaven looked like a goddess in heaven at this time. Every move she made exuded amazing charm, but the other 3 men and 1 woman present turned a blind eye to it. It seemed that they did not see the beauty displayed by the Queen of Heaven at this time. The Queen didn't care. She just raised the document in her hand and said, "I know you are all big figures in your country or power, and you have a lot of things to do every day, but I think if I just send the information, I'm afraid what awaits me is your long investigation, evidence collection, discussion, and countless meetings. So I ask the 4 of you to get together today. It is to tell you the following news in person." Next to the Queen, a man in a black suit with bright blonde hair looked like the most normal person here. But his expression was always cold. It seemed that he was looking at everything as a pile of meat. When the Queen finished speaking, the man raised his eyes on the bridge of his nose with his fingers and said expressionlessly, "Compared to what you want to say, I am more concerned about the series of unusual movements of the Star Alliance in the Federation and the Codex Kingdom in recent times. I have been waiting for your explanation for a long time." The Queen laughed a few times, showed an ambiguous look to the man, and said, "Uranus, don't be anxious, let's take a look at these materials together first." As she said, the Queen clapped her hands, and a circular column rose in the center of the round table, and a series of image data began to be played in it. The special structure allows the video content in the column to be seen 360 degrees around it. The first video that appeared was the video of Li Anping fighting Kano in Emerald City. The Queen added, "This data is still from Violet. At that time, all other records and people's memories were cleared by SpecialAbilities of Daxia." Then there was the scene of Li Anping fighting Qing Chan in the True God Church, followed by Song Bang, Thunder Emperor, and Blood Demon. Until the last Morocco, the screen was fixed on the time when Li Anping was shot and began to regenerate super quickly. At the same time, many small windows opened around the screen, all of which were information about the tens of thousands of citizens in the center of Morocco who died for unknown reasons at this moment. The Queen looked at the people in deep thought and said, "I have sent you all the specific information. What do you think?" No one spoke. After a moment of silence, a young woman with flame-colored red hair next to the blonde man spoke up and said, "Human monster. Yes, this Li Anping has only been able to obtain his abilities for less than a year, and everyone here has seen how fast he has become stronger. Especially the data shown in the information, which makes me have to doubt the similarities between him and the human monster." The armored man stood up first. "I will investigate this matter myself. If Li Anping is really related to the monster, our Truth Church will never let him go." After that, his body flashed and disappeared. It turned out that he was sitting at the conference table with a holographic image. Next to him, the man wrapped in a black cloak had disappeared without saying a word before leaving. The blonde man and the red-haired woman nodded to the Queen and said, "We will verify the matter of Li Anping. But the series of events caused by the Star Alliance in our country will not be let go after that." He pressed the glasses on the bridge of his nose with his index finger. The Queen smiled and nodded, and then watched the holographic images of the two disappear. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Man at the Top of the Food Chain. Author, Xiong Lango. Chapter 226. The first volume of the Hell Map in Li Anping's hand attracted all his attention at once. The so-called blood body of the first layer of the Hell Map is the foundation of everything. Through the entanglement of the power of the mind and the soul, the chaotic soul power in the sea of consciousness is purified with one's own spirit and body. Then use the soul power that has been burned, trained, and finally purified by the mind to infuse into one's body. Let this power of the entanglement of mind and soul fill the whole body, until every inch of skin, every bone, and even every cell. Let Li Anping's will reach every part of his body thoroughly and completely. In this case, although the physical fitness has not improved at all, it will allow Li Anping to have more incredible control and insight into the body. For example, after cultivating the blood body, he can accelerate the secretion of adrenaline and greatly increase his strength. He can accelerate the peristalsis of the stomach and enhance the digestive ability. As the cultivation of the blood body becomes more and more in-depth, the integration of mind and soul with the body becomes higher and higher, and Li Anping can even observe his body to the cellular level. Ordinary diseases, terminal illnesses, he can recover by controlling his own cells without even consuming soul energy. At this point, even if he has cultivated the first level of the blood body of the hell map, he has almost cultivated it. Only then can he learn the last 6 levels of the hell map. Because the blood body is the basis of the 6 major systems behind, only after cultivating the blood body can he improve his physical body according to the theory of the 6 major systems behind. So the blood body has almost no improvement on physical fitness. And Li Anping, relying on the 4th energy level of mind and huge soul accumulation, broke through all the levels of the blood body in one breath and completed the cultivation of the entire first level. But this is just the beginning for the hell map. Li Anping looked through the contents of the 6 major systems behind in his mind, and the more he read, the more amazed he was. The cultivation of the 6 major systems behind is more like a systematic science than a secret martial art. Transform the body in various incredible ways to make the practitioner's body into a monster that can adapt to all environments. And it grows almost infinitely. However, compared with the direct conclusions, there are more theories about the soul and the body. These theories far surpass the understanding of the body in modern society, and the part about the soul is completely unknown to humans. Even though all these theories were instilled into Li Anping's brain, he still found it difficult to understand most of them. However, one thing is certain, that is, in comparison, Li Anping used soul power to directly enhance physical fitness in the past, which was simply too simple and crude. He immediately thought of this method of using soul energy to directly enhance the body. All of it was taught to him by So does He know the knowledge in the hell map? Li Anping can no longer know the answer. However, he understands that whether He knows the knowledge in the hell map or not, it is normal not to tell him. And since he met the other party has been hiding too many things from him. However, the hell map is related to the demon clan no matter how you look at it. This map is obviously only activated by demons. Li Anping can only absorb the knowledge in it because he was transformed by Hei's ability. So he believes that the theory about body and soul in it originally belongs to those demons, and Hei should also know it, but he just didn't tell Li Anping. Obviously, it was the opposite of what Hei said. He didn't want Li Anping to become too powerful. Especially, Li Anping would have a huge bottleneck before reaching the 5th energy level according to the method he taught. According to the theory described in the hell map, once the transformation of the 6 major systems is completed, then the will be completely liberated, and there will be no so-called limit. The utilization rate of soul energy will also reach a new high. Li Anping became more and more excited as he read it, and he wished he could immediately transform his body according to the theory. Unfortunately, in the hell map, the transformation of the 6 major systems is obviously not a simple matter. Li Anping needs time to learn and absorb the knowledge in it before slowly completing the transformation of his body. However, the method that Li Anping thought of before to break through to the 5th energy level. The method in the hell map is obviously more promising and more powerful. Thinking time always passes quickly, and Li Anping is immersed in the amazing knowledge in the hell map. Yellow Mengxiang and Fang Yuelin can only wait. They watched Li Anping staring at the scroll in his hand blankly, and did not dare to disturb him. Just stood beside Li Anping, waiting quietly. But neither of them expected that they would wait for more than 2 hours. Fang Yuelin has been in the martial arts world for many years and has been exercising. After waiting for 2 hours, he was just a little impatient. But Yellow Mengxiang is just an ordinary person, and an ordinary person who lives a life of luxury. Especially before Fang Yong forced the palace, she had been confronting the guards, and then she was taken to the prison. Both her spirit and body have been consumed. After waiting for another 2 hours, she was very tired. But looking at Li Anping, it seems that he has not moved at all for 2 hours, still maintaining the original posture, staring at the hell map in his hand. Seeing that Li Anping still had no intention of ending, Yellow Mengxiang finally couldn't help shouting, "My lord." Seeing that Li Anping didn't react, she boldly shouted again, "My lord." Huh, Li Anping turned his head, the joy in his eyes had been deeply hidden, and glanced at Yellow Mengxiang lightly. Yellow Mengxiang lowered her head and said, "Sir, it has been a long time. If it takes too long, I am worried that there will be changes inside and outside the palace." Li Anping frowned and put away the picture of hell. "I understand, let's go." He only brought a picture of hell with him when he went out, because the contents of the other 16 secret martial arts books had all been memorized in his brain. The picture of hell was too special, so he decided to bring it out together. As for the stones on the second floor of the inner treasury, he asked Yellow Mengxiang to hand them over to Daxia's envoys and have them take them directly back to the 8th Research Institute. After returning to the ground, Li Anping ignored Yellow Mengxiang and the others and returned to the imperial study in a few jumps. Looking at Fang Yong, who looked dejected, it was obvious that he was at a complete disadvantage when facing Fang Yahuang and was suppressed to death. At this time, Li Anping directly said to Fang Yahuang about the hell map, "Next, you take over Baiyu and do these things. First, let Baiyu join the Pan-Continental Alliance I formed. Second, Fang Yong and all those involved in the nuclear explosion were executed. Third, cleanse all Covenant forces in Baiyu. After completing these 3 things, you will hand over Baiyu's affairs to Yellow Mengxiang and Fang Yuelin. Come to Tianjing quickly and help me." "I understand." Fang Yahuang nodded and said. As for how Yellow Mengxiang and Fang Yuelin will manage Baiyu next, Li Anping will naturally leave it to Wang Chong and the others. Because after that, 100 Dragon Bird Guards and a group of Daxia officials will gradually come to Baiyu. They will help Yellow Mengxiang transform Baiyu and implement Li Anping's ideas. Weakening the power of the nobility and royal family, improving the status and opportunities of ordinary civilians, and seeing the gap between rich and poor in the entire country. And rely on the powerful power of the Dragon Bird Guards to eliminate the scum in a large area of society. There may be some pain at the beginning, but after the whole month gradually gets on the right track and he gets used to his status as a member of the Pan-Continental Alliance, Li Anping believes that things will get better and better here. After Li Anping gave a few more instructions, he asked Fang Yahuang to withdraw from the 33 Cave Heavens area around the palace, and the troops surrounding the palace rushed in immediately. But Li Anping had already left the palace to recall the scattered Dragon Bird Guards. Next, Emperor Fang Yu returned to the throne again. With Li Anping and the amazing power he showed before, and because he is originally from the Baiyu royal family, he has absolute prestige among Baiyu's senior officials. Fang Yahuang suppressed the situation easily and regained control of all the rights of Baiyu Kingdom. In the next few months, with the help of absolute strength and toughness, combined with the power of Daxia, a vigorous reform was carried out. Not only did Baiyu join the Pan-Continental Alliance formed by Li Anping, but it also greatly eliminated the influence of the nobility, loosened the class solidification in Baiyu Kingdom, and purged several foreign forces, including the Star Alliance, making Baiyu Kingdom gradually getting on the right track. But all this is just the beginning. Not only Baiyu, but even Daxia is still far away from the utopia in Li Anping's heart. When Baiyu Kingdom was here, everyone inside and outside the palace was extremely busy. Li Anping, Zizi, Xiao Suesu and others had already boarded a special plane to Tianjing under Fang Yahuang's secret arrangement. To be continued, please search Ocean Literature. The novels will be better and updated faster. Man at the Top of the Food Chain. Author, Xionglang Go. Chapter 227. When Li Anping returned to Tianjing by special plane, it was already 1 o'clock in the morning. However, Li Anping was still energetic after getting off the plane. With his physical fitness, he would be fine even if he didn't sleep for 10 days or half a month. So after getting off the plane, he immediately took the Hell map and the meat stone and rushed to the 8th Research Institute. Li Anping first took the time to harvest some of the clones in stock during his 10 days away. The nuclear explosion and the subsequent cultivation of the first level of the Hell map consumed a lot of Li Anping's soul energy. After replenishing more than 100,000 soul powers, an electronic door opened and Shi Wen walked in a hurry. The whole room was filled with countless intact corpses, but Shi Wen was already used to it. He walked over the sea of corpses and walked towards Li Anping. What do you mean by giving us a stone? The research institute has a lot of things to do and is very busy. If you want to study stones, you should go find those archaeologists. Although Li Anping's power is getting stronger and stronger, almost no one dares to talk to him casually, but Shi Wen is like a scientific madman immersed in research. It is unknown whether he is slow or indifferent. The way he speaks is almost the same as when he first met Li Anping. Li Anping smiled. Usually, everyone around him is submissive to him, and only a few people like Shi Wen would talk to him in a normal way. That's not an ordinary stone. That thing should be the flesh and blood of some creature. How is it possible? Shi Wen said in disbelief. We tested it as soon as you brought it here. It's carbonate, calcium silicate, and some silicon dioxide. It's impossible for it to be a living organism. I don't know about this, Li Anping said seriously. In short, I can assure you that this thing definitely comes from some kind of creature. It should be a small part of that creature. As for how to confirm, study, or even restore it, it's up to you. After that, he ignored Shi Wen, who was puzzled, and left the 8th Research Institute directly. When he walked outside the institute, it was already more than 3 o'clock in the morning. Li Anping found that a row of cars had been waiting at the door, and Wang Yan was standing outside the car looking at him. Obviously Xiao Suesu was too tired and had gone to rest. So the one following behind Li Anping became Wang Yan, the proud daughter of the Wang family. Li Anping naturally didn't mind letting them follow him. In fact, most men probably wouldn't hate a beautiful woman with a strong background, unparalleled beauty, and great talent to follow them often. At least it's pleasing to the eye when you're bored. The old guys in the 9 royal families saw through this. That's why they asked the beauties sent by the royal family to follow Li Anping in turn. It would be best if they could have some intimacy with Li Anping, which is what they want to see most. Wang Yan saw Li Anping coming out and said nervously, "Sir, where are we going next?" Li Anping looked at the dark night sky and said casually, "I'll go back to the palace by myself, you don't have to follow me. By the way." Li Anping looked at Wang Yan in front of him and said, "Please buy some books for me." "Books?" Wang Yan asked in confusion. "Yes, it's books." Li Anping thought for a while and said, "First, all the textbooks of medical majors in the university. Bring me a copy of all of them. And other biology, gene, human body, and other related textbooks." Wang Yan was surprised and said, "All? All the textbooks?" "Yes. All." Li Anping nodded. "Do it as soon as possible. Send it to the palace after you buy it." Seeing Wang Yan nodded stupidly, Li Anping didn't care how she would complete the task. He jumped lightly and flew towards the direction of the palace. Seeing Li Anping leave through the night sky, Wang Yan immediately took out her mobile phone and made a call. "Hello. Yes, yes. I know. He wants all medical textbooks, as well as textbooks on genes, human body, and biology. Yes, yes, the more the better. I think it's best to send him everything from basic textbooks to the most cutting-edge papers." "Okay, I understand." At 3 o'clock in the morning that night, countless people were called out from their beds. Dozens of famous professors of biology and medicine in China were called by their superiors in the middle of the night to answer questions about textbook selection. The top universities, magazines, and journals in Daxia compiled a list of papers on related majors overnight, and sent the electronic versions of the papers to Wang Yan. Thousands of people were mobilized, and in a short period of time, a batch of the best and most comprehensive textbooks on medicine, biology, and human body were sent to the palace. Daxia Longke sent Momo to personally integrate those excellent papers and establish a special database and internal website of the palace. All this was just because of Li Anping's words. From beginning to end, no one even asked Li Anping why. When it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon of the next day, everything was done. Wang Yan opened the door of the palace study lightly, and saw Li Anping sitting cross-legged on the ground, holding a huge scroll in his hand and reading it non-stop. Even when Wang Yan walked in front of him, he didn't raise his head. Li Anping suddenly said, "Are you all done?" Wang Yan was startled and said, "Well, because there are too many textbooks, they are all placed outside the study. I also asked someone to compile a list of excellent papers and articles in related majors, all of which are here." As she spoke, Wang Yan handed a tablet computer in her hand to Li Anping, which opened an interface for searching papers. You can search by difficulty, major, direction, first letter, year of publication, author, etc. Li Anping clicked a few times and smiled with satisfaction. He put the tablet computer on the ground and walked out of the study. Regarding the knowledge of human body, medicine, and biology, Li Anping is just at the level of an ordinary college student. These papers seem to be mysterious and impressive. He will read those things after he has a certain foundation. So his initial goal is still textbooks. When he opened the door, he saw that there were 10 rows of bookcases on the open space outside the study, on which various carefully selected textbooks were placed in different categories. Wang Yan explained, "Sir, where are you going to put these books?" "Don't move." Li Anping casually pulled out a medical biology book and started reading. "Just put it here, it won't take long." Yes, Wang Yan saw Li Anping standing in front of the bookshelf and reading, and then quietly stepped back. Li Anping flipped through the books very quickly, almost reading 10 lines at a glance, just like a scanner, scanning the contents of the book into his brain. This is why he said it won't take long. His first step was not to understand it very well, but just to memorize all the knowledge of medicine, biology, and human body in front of him. Because his purpose was not to invent or create, he wanted to thoroughly understand the knowledge in the Hell Map. So the contents of these textbooks were all for him to lay the foundation. At his current reading speed, it would only take 4 or 5 days to finish reading all the textbooks in front of him. Wang Yan waited on the side, preparing some tea and snacks for Li Anping from time to time. However, Li Anping was very focused on reading and basically didn't eat those things. Time slipped away unknowingly. When the sun began to set in the sky, Li Anping put the Human Anatomy book back on the bookshelf. This book has more than 600 pages, which introduces all the structures of the human body in detail. Because it is purely memory-based knowledge, Li Anping understood it thoroughly after reading it. After learning about the structure of the human body in detail, he even felt that his blood body that he had already completed seemed to have made progress again. With a better understanding of the structure of the human body, his control over his body seemed to be closer. Li Anping showed a trace of satisfaction on his face. It seems that learning these basic knowledge first and then learning the content of the Hell Map is indeed right. Looking at Wang Yan, who was yawning on the side, Li Anping said, "Let Wang Chong and Lu Sheng come over." Wang Yan was stunned, and the next moment he woke up immediately. Yes, after saying that, he lowered his head and made a phone call. Li Anping thought to himself, the appointment with the God Realm is more than half a month away, and it's time to make arrangements, and the Star Alliance plotted against him in Bio country this time. He was not going to let it go so easily. That night, the Dongyang branch of the Star Alliance received an email from Daxia Longke. "I am Li Anping. All forces of the Star Alliance will withdraw from Dongyang within 15 days. From now on, This place will be under my control. To be continued. Please search Ocean Literature. The novels are better and updated faster. Man at the Top of the Food Chain. Author, Seong Lang Go. Chapter 228. On the same day, the Dongyang government also received a notice from the Daxia government that Li Enping would personally visit Dongyang in 30 days. As soon as the news came out, the whole country of Dongyang was shocked. But what made the Dongyang government leaders even more uneasy was that the Star Alliance members in Dongyang began to evacuate in large numbers that day. You have to know that Dongyang is a country that has completely surrendered to the Star Alliance, and more than half of the government leaders are controlled by the Star Alliance. This country is almost the bridgehead of the Star Alliance in the East continent. Now they suddenly evacuated. This kind of abandonment, combined with the news of Li Enping's personal visit, made Dongyang feel uneasy. Li Enping also felt that his punch seemed to be in vain. He didn't expect that the Star Alliance would directly retreat in the face of his provocation. It looked like giving up Dongyang and letting Li Enping do whatever he wanted. This weird behavior was obviously inconsistent with the Star Alliance's usual domineering style. And to say that they were shocked by Li Enping's strength, Li Enping didn't believe it. Because the Star Alliance has the only 6th level ability user in the world, and an unknown number of 5th level ability users. Even Li Enping is not completely sure that he can defeat them. The only thing that is certain is that once the current Daxia Dragon Bird and the Star Alliance go to war, the entire East and West continents will probably be involved in a terrible war. Both sides will suffer heavy losses. So now the two sides are secretly accumulating strength while maintaining restraint. Although the two sides have not communicated, they naturally have a tacit understanding. But the Star Alliance secretly sent nuclear warheads to Bayu this time, which is obviously over the line. So Li Enping directly asked for a lion's mouth and wanted to go to Dongyang. But he didn't expect the Star Alliance to withdraw without a word. To say that there is no conspiracy in this. The people of Daxia Dragon Bird will never believe it. However, compared with the above important news, in Dongyang's Kyoto, some magical urban tales began to circulate gradually. Stories about ability users, ancient legends, and immortality. Although the story is absurd, it seems as if an invisible hand is fanning the flames, making the rumor gradually spread. In a pavilion at the foot of Mount Fuji, Shinjun is slowly wiping the samurai sword in his hand, with a focused look and gentle movements, as if he is not wiping a samurai sword. Instead, he is treating a king Gren. The white-haired old man beside him is not surprised and said to him, "The battlefield is ready, the bait has been released, and we just have to wait for the chosen one to come." Shinjun stopped wiping and looked at his face reflected on the snow-white blade. Wouldn't it be too hasty to have them all come at once? The old man smiled and said, "Thanks to what Li Enping did in Bayu, the situation has moved in a more favorable way for us. Whether it is the Star Alliance, the Annihilation Abyss, or the Virtual Numbers Agency, their actions are all under my control. And judging from Li Enping's performance in Bayu this time, he is indeed the best candidate for the absolute ability. Add to that several other candidates, the revival of the God realm is inevitable." The old man's tone carried a sense of inevitability. Xian Jun sheathed the samurai sword and put it on the knife rack, sighing, "It's a pity that Shang Zhenhai is too closely protected by the Star Alliance. It would be great if he could come. There is no way. His ability is too precious. The Star Alliance will never let him take risks before he becomes a level 5 ability user." The old man smiled sinisterly, "But as long as the plan is completed this time and Li Enping and the others are dealt with, even if Shang Zhenhai reaches the 5th level, he will definitely not be able to save the situation. The human world will once again usher in the era of great unification." Xian Jun's eyes revealed a burst of enthusiasm. "Our era is coming." 6 days later, Tianjin University. In a corner of the school park, on the grass with a radius of 100 meters, only Li Enping was lying there, holding a tablet in his hand, constantly absorbing the knowledge in it. In just 6 days, almost 24 hours of sleepless study, he has almost completed the learning goal that ordinary people take 4 or 5 years to achieve. During these 6 days, he did not cultivate his mind or abilities at all, nor did he exercise his body at all. He just kept reading and studying. However, even so, Li Anping felt that his cultivation of the blood body on the hell map had reached a peak. He knew his body very well. Near the grass where he was reading, people wanted to come in or pass by from time to time, but they were all persuaded to leave by the staff around. These staff disguised themselves as students, cleaners, campus security guards, and teachers, hiding near Li Anping. They were certainly not monitoring Li Anping, let alone protecting Li Anping. They were preventing others from approaching Li Anping. In particular, they prevented the second generation of officials, the second generation of rich people, and the dandy children from approaching Li Anping and offending him, causing unnecessary trouble. Knowing that the king of hell is easy to see, but the little ghosts are difficult to deal with. The 9 royal families are most afraid of encountering such things now. So although Li Anping has been reading books at Tianjin University for a whole morning, no one can get close to him and say a word to him. All unstable factors had been cleared out before Li Anping arrived. Anyone who refused to obey was directly arrested and detained for 24 hours. Li Anping didn't mind them. After all, his every move now had a huge impact. It didn't matter to him if it could make some old guys feel at ease. After all, he came to the grass of Tianjin University to study because he was bored in the study room of the palace for 6 days and felt that his efficiency was a bit declining, so he wanted to change the environment. Just as Li Anping was reading, his ears moved suddenly and he heard a few muffled groans. He looked up and found a girl in sportswear rushing towards him. The woman was agile. Not only did she run very fast, but she also had amazing boxing and kicking skills. Her moves were as fast as thunder and as powerful as waves, but simple. No matter who was in front of her, she would solve it with a straight punch or a side kick. Wherever she passed, the disguised staff members fell to the ground, and almost no one could stop her punches and kicks. She didn't stop until she rushed to 10 meters in front of Li Anping. Behind her, a large group of staff rushed over, with dozens of pistols of all sizes pointed at the standing girl. Li Anping looked at the girl with interest, waved his hand, and signaled the staff to leave. The girl had pink hair and a tall figure, about 1.75 meters. Her skin was a unique pale and delicate color, like ice and snow in the sky. Although she was wearing a white sportswear and a ponytail. But it couldn't hide her stunning beauty at all. It was a kind of beauty that made everyone who approached feel ashamed. Even Li Anping couldn't help but flash a trace of appreciation in his eyes. He asked the girl, "Holy Queen?" "Claudia," he paused and said, "you are good at fighting." "Of course, I got full marks in the royal fighting course." The Holy Queen of the Ice Castle, the next generation of the Queen of the Ice Castle, was looking at Li Anping with a serious face at this time. Li Anping didn't seem to notice the other person's serious expression, and put his eyes back on the tablet, saying nonchalantly, "Why are you so anxious to find me?" Claudia frowned her delicate eyebrows, as if she wanted to express her anger. Unfortunately, not to mention that Li Anping wasn't looking at her, even if Li Anping saw her, her face would only make people feel cute even if she was angry. "General Li, I arrived in Tianjin half a month ago. I came here on behalf of the Friendship of Ice Castle. But you asked me to wait for you to come back from Baiyu. Then I waited, but this wait lasted for 10 days. After you came back from Baiyu, you still didn't meet me and announced the news of your mission to Dongyang. Then I waited for another week and decided to take the initiative to find you. Otherwise, I'm afraid I won't be able to wait for your reception until I die of old age." Li Anping glanced at her calmly and said, "I have no plan to marry Ice Castle. If you come here for this purpose, you can go to the 9 royal families. They are very interested in this kind of thing. Claudia took a deep breath, and her eyes seemed to be able to spit fire. She stared at Li Anping viciously and punched him directly in the forehead. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xiong Lango. Chapter 229. Claudia's skills are already at the master level among ordinary people, but for Li Anping, this punch is no different from a child's play. He didn't even try to dodge, and just let Claudia hit him on the head with a heavy punch. After the punch hit, Li Anping's body didn't move at all, just like a breeze blowing on his face. Instead, Claudia's face turned pale, and she felt a wave of severe pain in her right hand, as if she had hit her fist on marble. Li Anping asked, "Have you vented enough?" Claudia sighed and said, "What are you reading?" Some medical papers. Li Anping didn't raise his head from beginning to end. If it weren't for the appreciation in his eyes when he first saw Claudia, Claudia would probably doubt whether her appearance had become ugly. Realizing that Claudia had not spoken, Li Anping reminded her, "I will leave here in 10 minutes. No matter what you want to say, you only have 10 minutes at most." Claudia frowned, hesitated for a long time, and a trace of struggle was revealed in her eyes. She looked at Li Anping's indifferent look, sighed, and said, "You are right, the biggest purpose of my father's sending me here is to marry you. Pluto, Zhurong, and Blood Demon are all dead, and White Dwarf has joined the Star Alliance. Now Ice Castle has no level 5 ability users, and the Flame Dragon Vanguard is just a name. In the extraordinary war, it is completely at a disadvantage. We are in urgent need of a strong reinforcement. Otherwise, even without others coming, the imbalance of the 4 major nobles in the country is enough to cause civil strife." Claudia glanced at Li Anping, and seeing that he was unmoved, she bit her lip and continued, "Once we marry, Daxia will also get strong support from our Ice Castle, and we can also join your Pan-Continental Alliance." Claudia said this. Obviously, the internal strife of Ice Castle has become serious to a certain extent. Because one of the 4 nobles to which Yvonne II belongs, there are not many awakened ability users in this generation, and the other 3 nobles have no constraints at all when the Flame Dragon Vanguard is almost completely wiped out. In addition, the Battle of Morocco almost destroyed Yvonne II's prestige. Whether in the army or the government, his support rate dropped sharply. In addition, the other 3 nobles united and took advantage of the situation to put pressure on Yvonne II. At present, the control of Yvonne II's family over the entire Ice Castle has dropped to the lowest level in history. There is even the possibility of the entire empire splitting. However, Claudia then talked about a lot of benefits of the 2 people's marriage, but Li Anping remained silent. She looked at the other party's silence. She said with a hard heart, "Are you worried that after I marry you, the power under you will be unbalanced? If you are willing to marry me, I don't mind sharing a husband with others. You can choose women from the 9 royal families of Daxia at the same time, as well as female ability users from Daxia Dragon Bird. But before choosing, you must let me see it. In this way, it will also be good for you to control the power in your hands, right? And as a man, don't you want to open a harem?" Li Anping looked at Claudia unexpectedly, and then saw that the other party looked calm. Relieved in his heart. Although the other party looked the same age as an ordinary girl, she grew up in the Ice Castle royal family, so her views on marriage were naturally different from those of ordinary women. He asked casually, "You should inherit the throne, right?" "Yes, so you will become the prince of our Ice Castle in name." Claudia looked at Li Anping's still lack of interest. Suddenly hesitantly said, "Are you worried that I am spoiled and can't fulfill my wife's responsibilities?" Her face suddenly flushed. "Actually, after I became an adult, I have learned in the palace, about things between husband and wife." After saying this, Claudia's face was already red. After all, she was still young and not experienced enough. Talking about her marriage in the previous way was just a disguise. It was the first time she spoke about such a thing, and she couldn't help but feel shy. Li Anping didn't answer. In fact, Claudia had been persuading him for so long. He did start to consider the issue of marriage. His power was too strong, so strong that all his subordinates were afraid of it. Especially the 9 royal families and those nobles. On the one hand, they obey Li Anping, on the other hand, they secretly fear Li Anping and are on guard against Li Anping. Before this society is thoroughly reformed, this kind of thing cannot be avoided. But if there is a real marriage, with the 9 royal families of Daxia, and even many member states of the Pan-Continental Alliance in the future, such as Baiu and Bingbao, it obviously does have the effect of stabilizing people's hearts. Li Anping thought about it. Anyway, the marriage can be just a formality. But it can play a role in stabilizing the situation and resolving conflicts when the alliance is just established and the most turbulent. Li Anping thought about it, and finally his tone was somewhat loose. If it is a marriage, it is not completely impossible to consider it. Really? Claudia looked at Li Anping with surprise, and the next second she seemed to realize that she seemed too unrestrained, and immediately put away her surprise expression and asked, "Then let's keep everything simple and get ready immediately. I will send a message to the country." Then she took out her mobile phone. Li Anping said, "Why are you so anxious? Even if I want to get married, I will never find you alone. Nor will I be so casual after all. Li Anping's every move now will affect the international situation. If he wants to get married, it will be a major event in the entire Eastern continent." Claudia's face turned solemn. "I was too abrupt." So Li Anping waved his hand in the distance, and saw a staff member waiting in the distance running over and bowing. "Sir, do you have any instructions?" Li Anping said casually, "Tell Wang Chong that I can't think about marriage. Let them show me the articles of association assuming that I agree." Claudia reminded from the side, "And me?" Li Anping added impatiently, "Tell Wang Chong, assuming he is included." Then I saw the staff member leaving with a shocked look on his face. Claudia heard Li Anping's tone soften at this time, but he was no longer as excited as before. She just felt empty in her heart, as if something was missing. Li Anping looked at Claudia, who was a little lost, and said, "Don't think too much, I'm just thinking about it. And things like marriage are, at most, treating the symptoms rather than the root cause. At least I won't make a decision until the Dongyang matter is over. Even if we are really married, it's just a status. I won't care about your personal life. We still live our own lives." However, Li Anping felt in his heart that marrying Claudia would indeed give him an excellent excuse to intervene in the Ice Castle affairs. Claudia seemed to relax at this time. She sat next to Li Anping and said softly, "Then I will spend more time with you. Regardless of marriage or not, as the future queen of Ice Castle, I will be with you. There's nothing wrong with you getting to know each other." Li Anping went with her. Although Claudia has a beautiful appearance that will captivate the whole country, coupled with her status as a holy princess, she has attracted the covetous attention of countless men. But in his eyes, she is just a girl, a candidate for marriage. He lowered his head and looked at the paper in his hand again. After studying during this period, he felt that he had a certain foundation. Tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, we can almost start some body modification experiments. However, the 6 levels behind the Hell map correspond to the 6 major systems. There is no sequential relationship. It doesn't matter which one you try first. The respiratory system, digestive system, endocrine system, circulatory system, nervous system, and motor system are related to all aspects of the human body, but they are difficult and easy to transform. In terms of improving combat power, it is naturally the motor system that is most important to Li Anping. Combat power increases the most. The two major systems of respiration and digestion complement each other and can lay an excellent foundation for subsequent construction. Li Anping hesitated for a while, and finally decided to start with the respiratory system. After all, breathing is the beginning of human life and the basic condition for survival. And according to the knowledge in the Hell map, the respiratory system is easier to modify than the other 5 major systems. Also suitable as the first system to be retrofitted. To be continued, please search Ocean literature. The novels will be better and updated faster. Man at the Top of the Food Chain. Author, Xionglang Guo. Chapter 230. In the 8th Institute, in an underground laboratory, there was no one around. Only Li Anping was lying naked on a high-intelligence operating table. The entire operating table was covered with a layer of glass, which played a role of sealing and sterilization. His right hand was placed on the intelligent operating table, and a high-definition screen was hanging above his head, allowing him to lie flat and see the position of his chest. Under his operation, an instrument arm slowly cut his chest with a scalpel. But after the scalpel came into contact with Li Anping's skin, it made an unpleasant friction sound, like a knife poking on a stone. Li Anping turned the power of the mechanical arm to the maximum, but only left a red mark on his chest, and even a trace of blood could not be seen. Is it really like this? Li Anping looked at his chest on the monitor and showed a clear expression. After all, with his current physical fitness, even the wind blade at supersonic speed would not be hurt, and close-range machine gun shooting could not break his skin. Ordinary scalpels would definitely not cut his skin. But Li Anping had expected this and was already prepared. Under his operation, the robotic arm retracted into the operating table under him, and stretched out again after a few seconds, but at this time the scalpel in the robotic arm's hand had turned into a dark red knife. This is a high-frequency scalpel. Originally, high-frequency knives were first used in medicine and industry. This high-intelligence operating table is naturally equipped with it. Under Li Anping's control, the high-frequency scalpel directly cut into Li Anping's chest cavity, cutting a perfect straight line on his epidermis. However, this blood line disappeared quickly. Under the powerful regeneration ability, the wound healed directly in less than a second. With the repeated use of soul power to regenerate, it has almost become an instinct for Li Anping. Now he has to restrain this instinct again. Another knife cut, but this time under Li Anping's intentional control. Did not regenerate again, and a long wound appeared on Li Anping's chest. Next, as he operated, the entire lung was gradually exposed to the air. It can be clearly seen that with every breath Li Anping took, the lungs would shrink once. Breathing is a basic characteristic of all organisms known to humans. Low-level organisms directly exchange gases with the outside world through cell membranes, while higher-level organisms have evolved organs specifically responsible for breathing. The higher the organism, the more responsible its respiratory system is. Different organisms have different respiratory systems because of different environments. For example, humans live on the land, while fish can breathe in water. The Hell map records a respiratory system called the abyss breathing method. The ultimate goal of this respiratory system is to overcome all environmental influences and be able to exchange gases with the outside world in any environment. Whether it is carbon dioxide, oxygen, nitrogen, or even those toxic and harmful gases. They can all be absorbed through the abyss breathing method, and even in the lungs of the earth, they can breathe freely. Unless the body of the organism is completely vacuum, any gas can be absorbed, decomposed, and finally converted into nutrients for the body. In addition, the complexity of this respiratory system, in addition to the role of gas exchange, it also greatly enhances the strength of the lungs and the ability to smell and hold breath. But the abyss breathing method is so powerful that it is obviously not easy to complete. In fact, Li Anping never thought that this thing could be completed in one go. Li Anping was seen on the operating table. he manipulated the mind energy, soul energy, and mechanical arms at the same time, changing the basic structure of the lungs bit by bit. Every cell inside, relying on the manipulation power of Li Anping's blood body, slowly combined with the mind energy. This made Li Anping's cells fundamentally changed and brought supernatural properties. This is also the basis of the Hell Map, all practice and transformation. You must know that the mind energy is something that is difficult to observe by technology and cannot be seen by ordinary people. It is a supernatural power. Because it is originally the product of the combination of body and spirit. What Li Anping is doing now is like the mind energy representing half of the body and half of the spirit. He combined the mind energy with cells through the half of the mind energy, and made his cells also carry certain attributes of the spirit through the side of the mind energy representing the spirit. This made Li Anping's cells begin to have spiritual characteristics. What is spirit? The so-called how broad the heart is, the greater the world is. The spirit originally has no limit and is beyond the material world. But now, because of the ability, humans can understand the spiritual world, and even the mind energy is born, which can allow the spiritual power of all people with abilities to interfere with the material world. The means in the Hell Map are based on the mind energy, and then trained through the blood body, combining the two to control the body cell level. After all, as long as it is a living thing, has its limits. If you want to improve to infinite possibilities, you must make it bring spiritual attributes and break the barriers between the two. To achieve where the heart is, the body will go. However, exists in the real world after all. Even if it has some spiritual attributes, it cannot be as changeable as the human spirit. So after the cell and the mind energy are combined, this new cell still has to exist in a relatively fixed structure. So the combination is only the first step. After the combination, it brings new plasticity to the cells and the complete transformation of is the content behind. If a person with special abilities is in the laboratory, he can feel that Li Anping on the operating table is losing his mind energy at an alarming rate. This is the price of combining mind energy with cells, which requires an alarming amount of mind energy. You should know that this is not simply to infuse mind energy, but a thorough and permanent combination. How powerful is it to break the barrier between the material world and the spiritual world for cells and organs? And he needs to concentrate all the time and maintain the cell-level manipulation of organs. At the same time, he has to operate the mechanical arm and use special techniques to inject the special nutrient solution prepared in advance into the lungs to feed the new cells. Because this kind of cell with some spiritual attributes combined with mind energy consumes more energy for daily maintenance. So when combining mind energy, a large amount of nutrient solution should also be injected. It took Li Anping about 2 hours to consume all the mind energy in his body. But his brows were tightly furrowed. Because he spent so much effort, he found that the modified area was only the size of a fingernail. And only the properties of the cells were modified, and even the structure of the lungs did not change. It's more troublesome than I thought. Li Anping thought to himself, is it because my body is too strong, and the energy required for cell transformation is so much? If I only have the level of the first energy level, it should be much easier to transform. Sure enough, the knowledge recorded in the Hell Map should be used at the first energy level. Even at the 0 level, it should be learned. While operating the operating table, suturing his chest, and spraying disinfectant, Li Anping thought of another question in his mind: there is another troublesome place. These replaced cells do have amazing vitality and plasticity. But my body has not been completely transformed. In other words, when these cells disappear, the regenerated cells are the same as the original ones. These new cells can survive for a very long time, and there is no need to worry about natural replacement for the time being. But I can't let the transformed parts get injured easily. Once injured and regenerated, the cells will be replaced and returned to their original state. So, before completely replacing the cells and completing the transformation, I must avoid injury and avoid using superfast regeneration. Thinking of this, Li Anping snorted coldly, it seems that I have to be more careful when I go to Dongyang this time. However, Li Anping did not really take it to heart. After all, there was still a month left, and he was sure that he could at least complete the transformation of the respiratory system. And even if he could not use superfast regeneration, how many people on this land could be his opponents? How many people could hurt him? Seeing that the wound on his chest had completely healed, Li Anping sat up, opened the glass cover outside the operating table, and walked out. At the same time, from the distant south, a stream of mind energy was coming through the air to help Li Anping recover his mind energy. That was the effect of the mind energy incarnation. The connection between Li Anping and the mind energy incarnation had surpassed the physical barrier. This was confirmed by Li Anping before sending the mind energy incarnation out. Otherwise, he would not have been able to leave the incarnation with Baiyu Emperor so casually. Not only could he control the incarnation from a distance, but he could also let the incarnation help him recover his mind energy from a distance, and he could even directly summon the mind energy incarnation from a distance of thousands of kilometers from Baiyu country. To be continued, please search Piaotian literature. The novels are better and updated faster.